Hello, hello. Welcome to Wesam's World. I'm your host, Wesam Quiche. A very exciting episode today. First of all, if you're listening live on Adobe Radio, thank you so much for tuning into the show. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram at Wesam Quiche and Wesam's World Podcast. We have a great episode for anyone who's wanting to go into the acting, TV, film industry. I have my manager, Steve Smith from Stagecoach Entertainment, who we'll have on in just a few minutes, and I'm going to go through the gambit with him. I'm going to talk about every little thing that you could possibly need to know as a brand new actor coming to Los Angeles, and you are going to be very well informed if you're coming to LA and you listen to this episode. And please share it with your fellow actor friends who are already here and maybe have a lot of questions, because we are going to be talking about the manager/agent relationship with the actor, what they expect of each other, and things to do and things not to do in that professional relationship. And also a little bit about the acting craft as well, and a little bit about what the manager/agent actually does in their role in those positions. So this will be a very insightful episode. I've been wanting to do this for a while. Nice. And I'm super excited about that. If you listen to last week's episode, Peyton and I got into a little bit of an argument over a Mortal Kombat trailer.
Just a little, yeah.
Yeah, some words were thrown at each other.
One person got petty about it, not naming any names.
Oh, you're talking about the guy who wrote the intro for the episode? Because I saw your intro.
My description?
Yeah, the description for the episode. You're talking about petty?
I don't know, man.
Bro?
Oh.
Today's supposed to be a good episode.
Man, did I ruin it?
You know what? You might have already.
I might have.
You might have already.
Shoot, man. I don't think we're ever going to see eye to eye with this.
And that's fine, because I'm on the right side.
Oh, okay.
I'm on the good side.
That's okay. That's okay if you're wrong.
I didn't know you like Satan so much.
Actually, Mortal Kombat is the most satanic thing I can think of. Up there with Pokemon. Up there with...
The most satanic?
Most satanic thing is Pokemon and Mortal Kombat. No, I was watching a TikTok, and there's a trend, tell me, the most outrageous, Christian video.
Yeah.
If you're ever watching, it's all of those, hardcore churches. First one I watched was about a kid that was goofing off, so the pastor punched him in the chest, and he said, "When are you going to get real with God?" And he's like, "And I converted that man that day."
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to do that. It's like, I don't think you do, man. And then the second is that Pokemon's satanic.
I know. It's a pretty aggressive technique into making people believe in your religion, to punch them as hard as you can in the chest. Because I believe that's what that pastor said, right? He punched him as hard as he could.
Yeah, right in the chest, and he got down. "When are you going to stop playing games with God?"
You got mental problems, sir.
And I converted that man that day.
Converted that man. Yeah, man, I don't know. I don't know about that. That seems a little aggressive.
Oh, yeah.
We're not going to get down that road. We've got we've got some other things to talk about. But I will say this. If you have to punch somebody and use violence to convert somebody,
right?
Yeah, maybe you're doing it wrong. Maybe you're just doing it wrong.
Right.
Can you imagine seeing that, in your car driving by? You'd be like, "Oh, I got to call the cops." I had a really busy acting week, which was great. Pilot season seems to be in full swing now.
Mm-hmm.
Started off to a kind of a slow start, I should say, due to COVID and everything going on. Some great pilots this year. I've been reading a lot of the scripts. And, some very, very surprisingly well-written shows, which is always wonderful.
Good.
And I will say this, and me and Steve will talk about this a little bit too. If you're reading pilots, a lot of scripts as an actor, you'll start noticing these are a lot better than these pilots, or how did these get made and these didn't? And it's always a nice treat whenever 90% of them are good.
Yeah.
Because then it makes you feel better.
Is this a rare thing to happen?
I've gone through some pilot seasons where I've read scripts that are pilots, and half of them I go, they're not bad, but because the quality of the good scripts are so good, they make those scripts look worse than they are. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, totally get you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, you know, I was going to make a Mortal Kombat reference, and then I couldn't think of one off the fly.
Probably was going to be goofy.
Hey, man, you know what?
Hey.
I will ruin your week. I'll ruin your week.
Man.
And that's so much more intense than saying I'll ruin your day. Because a week lasts...
That's right.
Yeah. Not a month. I will ruin your week.
That's right. Which could screw up my month, you know? So, like, you know, butterfly effect. Like, it can happen,
Exactly.
you know?
By the way, some really dark scenes in that movie with Ashton Kutcher. Have you seen The Butterfly Effect?
No.
Oh, yeah. Ugh.
Never heard of
Yeah,
it.
it's
Is
pretty
it
dark.
good?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. It was just really... There were some scenes where I'm like, oh, this is really dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I dig movies like that.
I was about to mention what it was, but then we'd be demonetized on YouTube.
Oh,
for
it's
being
that
not-
kind of dark.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no sponsor wants to be attached to that.
Oh,
kind of
gotcha.
Yeah. Very, very few sponsors.
Horror, thriller, suspense, mystery?
Thriller, suspense.
Gotcha.
Thriller, suspense. Yeah.
Okay.
You know what's one of my favorite thriller movies ever?
What?
The Game with Michael Douglas from the 90s.
No, I know this. Why do I know this?
Oh, I love it. I love that film to my heart.
That's not where they're in, like, the maze and gotta try to get their way out. No, it's not that.
No,
I'm
sir.
thinking of something else.
something else.
Yeah.
This film was great because it's a time before cell phones were a main tool to solve every single script problem that you have.
So if I were to go back and watch the game, if I were to think, like, if they had cell phones,
Yeah, don't
this
think
would...
that. Yeah. Don't think that. Just put yourself in the situation of those people in the 90s. That's what you have to do.
Game.
And it was actually so well done. It's so freaking good. Yes, there are some things that, like, come on, how did they plan for that or whatever?
Oh.
But then they explain it at the very end.
Yeah.
Because it's in the world of this super, super rich dude.
Okay.
I'm talking about billionaire rich.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And
If Bruce Wayne became a criminal kind of stuff. No.
No.
What?
What are you taught?
You said like a billionaire
Yeah.
and he's doing crimes?
No, I didn't mention
Oh.
crimes. Where did you get crimes from, sir?
I don't know. I was reading the plot and it looks like it's a detective chasing a criminal.
No,
It's not?
You're ruining this for the people.
I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
No, man. Michael Douglas, The Game. It's not about crime. He's not a criminal.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
I'm confused now.
Do me a favor. This week, can you watch The Game and then
Yes.
get back to me next week?
Yes.
Because I would really, really like to talk to you about that film with you.
Yes. I will definitely watch it.
If you're listening to this, watch The Game this week and then come join us next week so we can talk about The Game. And if you've already watched it, let us tweet at me right now what you think of The Game.
Yeah.
Or Instagram message the Wesam's World account. And I'm burping again.
Too
There
much
it goes.
Jocko.
Too much what?
Jocko.
Jocko drink. You know what? We're not sponsored.
That's okay.
But I got to say, I love Jocko's Discipline Go. My favorite is orange and the cherry vanilla, which they're out of stock of right now, which breaks my heart.
Jocko.
Tastes like Dr. Pepper without any sugar, which I love. I love. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest today is my manager in acting. His name is Steve Smith. He is the owner/president of Stagecoach Entertainment, where they rep actors, singers, models, directors, producers, writers.
Dancers?
Sure. I mean, at that point, you might as well.
Might
rep a
as well.
dancer, right? He has been my manager now for a good number of years, and I appreciate him so much for his honesty, his hard work, his diligence, and for his craftiness and his knowledge of what this industry is. And I wanted to share that with you all, especially the ones who want to be actors. And for those of you who aren't in the industry, this will be a great episode to listen to know the exact ins and outs of how an actor books a job, what a manager does, all that stuff that nobody really tells you until you're out here in Los Angeles. And then you ask, hey, what will this do? Or you know what I mean? Like, you find it as you go. This will be a comprehensive episode of that. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Steve Smith right after the break.
And this new one is like a Rashomon sort of version of
Oh.
Navy SEAL operators in Afghanistan.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, if you need, obviously now that they're looking for Navy SEAL actors, you've got me because I've been bulking up.
Yeah,
I've gotten thicker.
yeah.
15 pounds of pure muscle right here.
Well, the first one, the first Navy SEAL won the terminal list. I was sort of like, who's going to be in the show?
Yeah.
Because the first thing is an operation in which an explosion goes off and kills the entire unit, but Chris Pratt.
Oh.
And so it's his PTSD from the moment of his losing his best friends. So much of it takes place on Coronado. So I was immediately, when I was like, ooh, a Navy SEAL show, I was thinking of you and a couple other people, but there aren't any Navy SEAls. They're all dead. One comes back to him as a ghost, like he was always talking to him, and I was like, is this going to be the shtick for the whole thing? And Taylor Kitsch got it, so I guess so.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
This new one, though, has several Navy SEALs. Only one dies in the first extraction of 2 journalists, and they're all different ages from 26 to 43. The one guy, this guy Drifter, dies. He's sort of the older one, but really good. And so, and there's a new guy that gets married to another operator's sister, and they beat the shit out of each other in a parking lot to get over it. But there's actually active SEALs, and it also takes place in Coronado.
You know why I like you, Steve?
Why?
I'm being dead serious. You're so knowledgeable about every single show, every single aspect of this business, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. As your client, as your friend, as your teammate, I don't know, man. It's just so nice to be with someone who I know knows what's going on, which you would think is a common trait for people in this industry, but it's not.
I think a lot of people know their lane and generally don't do a lot of extra research outside of their lane. Because, time is a commodity and a resource, and it's limited. And, it's just you got to prioritize. And I think I always have wanted to do this since I was a little kid. So, I was reading Variety in middle school in New Mexico. So I've always been interested and started with box office and films. And as the businesses migrated more to television, it was more ratings and then content and then the streaming wars. So it's something I love to do. I love to research. I love the history of our business. So I think it's just about doing the work and doing the homework, but also finding the time and knowing what's prioritized, I guess.
Absolutely. And that was one of my favorite things when I first met with you years ago when I was searching for a new manager. I enjoyed that greatly about you and your team, and then also for the fact that you were so down to earth in talking with me, and that you guys also had an office space and it wasn't out of your apartment, which I remember your first office space. They're all office spaces, but when you first walk in, I thought it was an apartment complex, but they had turned it into an office space, which I was kind of like,
They did.
yeah. And that was like, I was like, I want a manager with an office space. That's one of the checklists. So I'm glad it worked out, which I know sounds like a small thing, but it actually is.
No, it's the whole reason why I, started spending money that I didn't have is to move it out of my bedroom when I first started the company to an office space, because I never wanted to be that weirdo that I'm at his house and he's a manager. What's weird about that is now we're all managers working out of our house. And now I'm like, why did we get space? I actually still go to the office every day because we pay for it. But yeah, I never wanted to be considered those weird creeper managers that are out of their house, that are not legitimate. And some are very legitimate out of their houses, and they just smart enough to save overhead or saw the pandemic coming, I guess. But no, I want to keep growing the size of the office, and not just for legitimacy, but a sense of we've done something, that we've grown, that we've established. It's all part of the internal process too.
Well, also you guys have a great team there at Stagecoach, so I could only imagine you guys need to be somewhat close to each other, to talk to each other, to be there, and for everybody to kind of have that dojo, the Stagecoach dojo.
It's kind of right. I mean, I guess with the pandemic, it's different. You got to figure out ways to sort of collaborate, because you used to just pop into somebody's office and be like, what was that thing we were talking about? Or hey, did you pitch Wesam on that project, or whatever it is? And now it's all IM messages, Zoom meetings. We do 9 internal Zoom meetings a week, which now I'm starting to feel like an agency or something, because agencies back in the day, almost all their morning meetings were a lit meeting, a talent meeting, a feature grid meeting, a TV grid meeting, and now we're doing all that. But, we save the time of driving to and from an office generally. There's a lot of other, I guess, efficiencies that we found through this process. I loved seeing people for lunch. This is the first time I've driven to the Valley in almost a year.
Wow.
So, and I used to come out here 3-4 times for lunch. So just about an hour out here with traffic, eating lunch for an hour and a half and an hour back. Not the most efficient use of our time. That's why the tech companies all think we're morons for taking lunches like that. But.
So I wanted to bring you on because I was inspired by hearing the people on that new app Clubhouse. There's a lot of casting directors and managers and agents, and I was listening to some of these really green actors talk about or ask questions that are so green it made me cringe. Side note, I went through all my auditions that I've had, and I was tallying them, how many auditions, how many callbacks, how many bookings for theatrical and commercial. And I went back and saw some of the emails I had asked to Joe when I first came out here. And it made me like, oh, dude, it made me cringe so bad. And I was like, okay, there needs to be an all-encompassing episode where we can hit all the major bullet points, all the main things an actor needs to know so they don't ask these questions, so they come off a lot more professional whenever they come out here or if they're already out here. So I want to start off kind of at the beginning from your perspective of the business. How do you find new clients, and where do you usually get them, and what do you usually look for whenever a client comes to you?
Loaded question. I don't know. I mean, in all honesty, there's no one pattern. I would love to associate more math and analytics to our line of work. They've done it in basketball. They've done it in football, definitely done it in baseball. We are lacking that sort of identification. And I don't know. I'm always struggling with that. Like, can we create an app or an algorithm that can help solve who's ready to work and when and what category and all that stuff? But that doesn't really exist. And I don't know if it ever really will on some level. But I would say the number one thing I'm looking for in people to work with, do you have at least an interest in learning about the business? Because it is not an intuitive business. It sort of also operates in its own way in a lot of different ways too. So I'm looking for somebody who's really interested in learning and growing in their own awareness. Like, I'm happy to answer questions for clients and things like that. But also, I'd love that they're independently trying to learn stuff. There's a lot of information out there. There always has been. That they are doing some of that exploration on their own. Generally, that they're cool, normal people, down to earth. That they know this is a business, but it's not all of their life. But also, you have to have the dedication and focus to this. Like you're an athlete, like you're a concert pianist, like you're an Olympic diver. You need that level of dedication and drive. So those are sort of the two biggest things. And then trying to find clients is tricky. Sometimes you're watching a TV show and you see a guest star or co-star and you're like, wow, there was something there, a charisma, an energy, a performance. And then you sort of look up, are they repped? Who are they repped by? It's all different things. Sometimes we talk to agents in Toronto or England or Australia and see if they have people looking to make the transition. Sometimes it's talking to our clients. They have friends that are unhappy with their current reps. Sometimes it's just talking to other agents of like, hey, do you have people looking that maybe need some more information, structure, advice that agents can't really provide because they're in the volume business, just the way it is. So those are sort of general thumbnails of what we look for.
Yeah.
And how.
Do you ever go to those they're not workshops, they're showcases? Have you ever gone to those? What do you feel like the pros and cons of those things are?
Look, they're a necessary, uncomfortable part of the business. I don't want to say they're evil because, people come out of them and you find them, but I have traveled 2 or 3 or 4 times on these things. Mostly it makes me sad because, you go to Florida and you go to one of these things and you find out they're charging $15,000 a kid.
Whoa.
And most of the families probably can't afford it. And, they're doing some commercials like look right, look left. And then there's people like us that go for, a couple $100. It's not like we spend it all there on food and, whatever. It's not enough to sustain anything, but we go and hoping we'll find like the needle in the haystack. But the majority of the time it's, no one's been trained, or if they've been trained, it's not enough, or it's just, so I went to a few of them. I really liked the people I went with, and it's like, yeah, So I try not to go to those. I
Yeah.
used to go to some showcases out here, hoping we'd find more. But generally, those are also people aren't quite ready for prime time, I guess is a way to put it.
Prime time, big time. That's my nickname on the show. So
That's what we call you here.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, Steve.
Yeah.
No, you hit it on the head with the training. That's what I've noticed with a lot of actors who are coming out here and everything. Either they've stopped training completely, or they don't come from a trained background. And then you see their work, and it's like, how does that work? I think you need to study the craft to a certain degree. Otherwise, you can get to a certain marker in this business. I will give you that. You can get to a guest spot, even a series regular role. But how good is that series regular role going to be? How fast of a learner are you? And at one point, do you just plateau? What's going to be that block where you can't take yourself to the next level? And that always astounds me, man. I always tell, I get messages like, hey, I want to be an actor. I'm in high school. I'm like, oh, don't move out to LA. Go to college, and if that's something you want to do, start studying it. And if you really like it, study it even harder and harder and harder. That's what I think people should do. But yeah, man, do you have a lot of clients that kind of in that same realm who maybe you had clients, I should say, where it's hard to get them into an acting class maybe, or get them to keep training?
All the time. Because it costs money. And this is not, unfortunately, this is a business that people, if you're going to get in on the acting side, you can make obviously a lot of money. But it takes a long time, and it's not always sustainable. And to do the work leading up to it, a lot of it is on the individual. New headshots cost $200 to $1,000. Classes, coaching, all the things. There's a big barrier of entry. That's also a bummer for adding more diverse new voices into this business, is because you kind of have to have some money to support it. Like, you can work on your own. You can find your own support network. You can use YouTube and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think people need to be with coaches. And I also think there's a couple different things to that question. Is one, I think a lot of people will coach for an audition. And I think that's great. You should coach for an audition. But I think a lot of people then go, well, I don't need to be in class because I'm getting auditions. And it's like, well, I think all actors should coach or learn for themselves. They should be in a class breaking down material for them and the passion. It shouldn't always be a game time situation where it's like, hey, you got to practice. And auditions are game time opportunities, and you're never really going to try new things or really push the boundaries or really dig deep into that character if you're not doing the work simultaneously on the side about actual deep character work. I bring this up a lot recently. I love biographies, especially about actors, because I am not an actor. I've only been on stage at sophomore year in high school because I had to. I did a scene from Catch-22, and it was embarrassing and horrible. But I was always around plays. I was always around stage management. I was always around the arts, but I'd never want to be on stage. So I read all these biographies, and Sally Field's book, which was really interesting, came out, I think, during the pandemic. She came out, she booked Flying Nun. She was number one on the call sheet doing the show, and she fought really hard, I think, to get into a Stanislavski class, and he broke her down every week. She worked hard at the material because she didn't want to just be the Flying Nun, and she worked all the time on other material, and she was already a lead of a show. She was already a national kind of icon because it was in that Beach Boys sort of movement where she, fame, the beginning of the fame in the 70s, or actually late 60s. She was still working on the side on something that wasn't just a TV show and wasn't just auditions. She won an Oscar.
Yeah. I think you made a great distinction of training for auditions is awesome. Getting coached on auditions is great. But the meat and the foundation is your actual acting work that you do. That's something I've been working on a lot with my brother William. We've been going through the Uta Hagen process, especially. I'm like, you have to answer these 9 questions, and in great detail. And they have to be so ingrained in you, because you're not going to be thinking about every single aspect of your character while you're performing, but it creates, and you start creating the imaginary circumstances and space for where you're going to live in. And we start noticing immediately, because he's new to this, the same problems that a lot of beginning actors face. For instance, he starts looking down when he's unsure, or he'll look at what he has, these little acting quirks. And I'm like, why do you keep doing that? He's like, I didn't even know I was doing that. I'm like, there you go. So you have an awareness problem while you're doing it. You're thinking of what you did. You're judging yourself. You're not thinking about stuff in the moment. You're not being present. And he's like, well, how do I be present? And I'm like, it takes a lot of focus. You're kind of like riding this wave on a surfboard, and you can't be thinking about anything else except that exact moment, or you're going to fall.
Right.
And that takes a lot of practice, man, and a lot of diligence. And there are a lot of rough days for an actor. And I have to explain to him, like, you see me how I work, and I find a scene very quickly. I find the foundation of it. That didn't happen overnight. I was an over actor. I was not a good actor when I first started.
No
I
one's
really
gonna
wasn't.
be. No one's going to be. There's at least some actors have the inherent charisma that you can't teach. There's some people that might have a really gifted natural raw ability, but you're not going to be a great actor until you continue to work. And it's like, the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours thing I think is always relevant. The thing I always go back to, and which is funny because a lot of actors are not sports fans, but I consider like sports. What I find interesting about some young people, especially who've come out of like major programs, the Juilliards and the USCs and things like that, they come in and go, well, why am I not reading for the number one on the call sheet on this? Or why am I not going out to see regulars right away? And I said, well, do you ever think I'm pretty good at baseball? I'll just drive down to Dodger Stadium, knock on the door and say, like, can I play center field tonight? Doesn't really work like that. Like, you started at T-ball, then you started doing, Pee-wee leagues, then you did travel teams, then you played in middle school, then you played in high school. Maybe you got drafted after high school, but maybe you went to college. Like, there's a growth process to sports. It makes a lot more sense. And the same thing with sports and acting. It's like, you can't teach height. You can't teach speed. I mean, you can enhance those things in certain ways, but like there's a natural ability. But I think the best athletes are really good examples of LeBron was born 6'8" with a frame that could support a 240, pound body, but he practiced every day. He hired one of the greatest centers of all time to coach him in off the season on post moves.
Oh.
Yeah, he hired Akeem Olajuwon, who's maybe one of the greatest centers ever to live, to help him with post moves. And this was like his second, third year in the league. Like, he continues to work. And Kobe Bryant, no one would dispute how hard he worked and how much he outworked people. Like, I don't know why in acting's the one thing, because it's so nebulous. It's like you sort of just show up and you're like, I'm already amazing. There's a lack of self-awareness because you don't have the same games to judge people off of, I guess. I don't know.
No, I think you're right. Absolutely. And I also think it's the industry and the town, especially LA and New York to a certain extent of, this. You can be lazy in LA and still make it, I feel. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sorry, survive. Like, you can float by, if that makes sense.
As a performer or just in life?
In life. I'm talking about in life. You might not, you might get auditions here and there,
Sure.
But it's easy to float by in Los Angeles. And what I mean by that is making a living, pay your rent and stuff like that, before coronavirus, of course.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic. So let's say you find a client, you had a great meeting with them, and I know a lot of people ask about headshots and stuff like that. I find that to be kind of differentiating with each manager and agent, what they like, what they're looking for. In my opinion, I don't know if this is correct, are you looking just for like their natural look? You don't want any them in a doctor suit or nurses, right?
I could sense where you're going. Yeah. When I see people with the glasses with no glass in them, or the doctor's outfit with the stethoscope, or I can play a businessman and they're in a suit.
They have props, stethoscope?
Oh, yeah. It makes me sad because you're right. Someone gave them that advice. I don't think anybody came up with that on their own. To me, I just want the best plain version of who that person is. Because, again, the plain version, like the gray T-shirt or something that you're wearing today, is great because I can picture you then as a guy who, was a firefighter, and this is what you wear in the downtime, or I could picture you as whatever. It's a canvas that you want the casting director or the producer to look at you and go, I can see him doing blank. You don't want them, all of a sudden, if you have this weird doctor one with a stethoscope, you're like, I wonder if they could play a cop. And you go, well, they're in the doctor outfit, so probably not.
Yeah.
But also, to me, that's a commercial person. That's a co-star actor. That's someone that's like, we need to get them in as the background doctor, in the reboot of Scrubs when that happens.
Right.
And it's like, that does not lead to a series regular role, nor does that lead to anybody considering you anything but that, that chair in the room.
Right. So you guys got the headshots. They're all uploaded, everything, just so we can kind of take people through the ABCs of how you get the audition for the client. What happens? Is there's a breakdown that gets emailed to you from the casting through Actors Access usually, or there's other ones, right?
Actors Access and Breakdowns are like mirrors of each other. They're owned by the same company and the same guy. And it is an antiquated system, but it is what we have. And you get a lead, which is a breakdown, for male, open ethnicity, can walk and talk at the same time. 99% of the time, it is not a character trait. It's not anything we could base, Wesam has that same trait, we should put him up for that. It's just, back in the day, there was one casting director who would put up female 40s because it's like, why bother? So it doesn't give us a lot to work from. So there's a little bit of imagination. It's a little bit off of age range. It's a little bit off of ethnicity. It's also, to me, it's a lot off of who that casting director is. What's the show about? Who's worked on that show in the past? Can I see that person in that world? Because maybe you've worked with some of them in the past. So yeah, we get the breakdown. We probably submit a wider net, and then the people we feel are extremely right for it, we pitch. And, usually is sometimes a phone call, usually, especially in coronavirus, because everybody's working from home. You send out a pitch email, which is usually a couple of lines of why they're right, some credits, headshot, a reel.
Okay.
I mean, it's not science, but it is definitely, you got to be on it. Like,
Yeah.
You can't just check out for a week and hope auditions happen.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So you're getting, as soon as you get these emails, then you guys are like on it because
Yeah.
I would assume the quicker you guys submit, the more better chance that the castings.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
I think sometimes on the smaller roles, there is a speed quality to it because they'll fill up the audition pretty quickly. I think the majority of the roles, especially series regulars, they're looking at them. They're thinking about it. The recurs, the ones we're more focused on, sure, the guest stars here and there. Usually they're not going to make the session until the end of the day. So if it comes out at 9 a.m., ideally we want to get through it, get the submissions quickly, but then usually we'll sit for a second, sort of think who's best to pitch and when and why and timing of that. But speed does not win the race.
Gotcha.
Especially on features and TV series. You want to do the submissions, but then when you're pitching, you actually want to wait a day or two. You want to see if the audition came in. Also, sometimes you get tips. Did another agent already get an audition for something? Is it a real audition? Is it a pre-read? So that's where the speed, if you're going quickly, sometimes you get a pre-read and you're like, I don't want this person to pre-read for this.
Right.
So there is some thought to it.
That makes sense. And this sounds like, obviously I know the answer to this, but I like hearing it from you. Let's say, you got the audition. It comes in and you send it over to your client. At this point, what are your expectations, your professional expectations from your client when they get an audition?
That's a funny one because a couple stories come to mind on, a lot of actors, this is a pet peeve of mine, will say, I don't think I'm right for this role. I don't think I want to tape for it. And I'm like, so I have to every now and again write an email or pick up the phone and say, I didn't know you were casting this project. I didn't know you were producing it and directing it. So I'm glad that they're calling you in because they already know what you look like. They've seen your reel. I'm glad you think you're wrong for it because someone thought you were right for it. Not only us who submitted you and pitched you on it, but the casting director actually selected to see you. So that one's a little baffling to me. But other than that, like I would like someone to read the material, be thoughtful, do the tape within the time limit allotted. Some people, especially the newer clients, I would love it if they did it in advance and we could give notes and thoughts because now that everything's on self-tape, we're watching all the tapes. It takes a lot of time, but we're watching them and we want to coach people up to be better, to be in a better place to book a job. Because also the auditions to me, just to go back to another person I worked with, we talked at the end of the year. We checked in. Hey, how was your year? He goes, oh my God, it was the best year I ever had. I had so many auditions. It was really great. And I said, yeah, you had 88 auditions this year. He's like, wow, what a great year. And I wanted to be like, was that your great year or my great year? Because you had one co-star booking that was, I think, an offer previously. I can't even remember how it came together, but you made like $3,000 as an actor this year and you had 88 auditions. So was that your good year or mine?
Right.
And at least he did them all. He was on time. He didn't really vary his performance very much. But I was like, this isn't the goal is not auditioning. And I think that's a lot of actors forget that because it is hard to book.
Sorry, that just blew my mind that it's not just about auditioning, which I know it's true. It's like, I want to work. I want to book it. Yeah.
And they feel a lot of actors, will part ways with reps because I didn't get enough auditions. And then when they do get a lot of auditions and they didn't book, I just think I don't want actors to be too self-reflective because we all get no in this business all the time. And trying to parse out, is it a no because of my talent, my skill, it was a bad audition, was it me personally, no one liked me? Like attaching those two things because you are the commodity we are selling as a group, right? So I don't want anybody to be too down that rabbit hole because it's very tough. I get no 150 times more than the actor does, but it's not me personally. I get it on projects I'm pitching or clients we're sending out material, staffing, submissions, acting. So it's tough. It is a very much like 1 out of 1,000 you got to be happy with. But I just think it's fascinating. So many actors are like, I had a great year. I had a lot of auditions. I'm like, great.
We got to take a quick break, but
Sure.
when we come back, we can continue this conversation. We'll be back. You mentioned now you're watching self-tapes more than ever.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh.
No, it's a lot.
Yeah.
I sort of, part of me is like, I love being able to see what people are doing and what they're up to. But also part of me is like, back in the day, pre-COVID, the actor got the sides, drove to a place, did their thing, drive home. And I was like, every now and again I check in and be like, how'd they do? Now we see them all and we're sort of expected to watch them all. And between the four of us, I guarantee at least 2 of us watch all of them. But it's impossible to watch all the tapes we get.
Yeah.
Which is a bummer.
I could only imagine.
Because also, look, this is how the business changed. Back in the day, you go to an office, casting office, they probably call in maybe 20, 25 people, maybe up to 40 for a specific role. Let's say it's a guest star or recur, non-series regular because those can go on longer. But let's just say it's something like that. Now they can just send out 150 auditions because why not? And then I'm sure there's a lot of agents and managers that you take those 150 appointments and you send them to another 25 of your own clients. So maybe 400 people are taping for this thing. Probably a third of them aren't real appointments. But even if they're not real, if we have somebody tape for something that we're like, they're really right for it, we can get it in front of the casting directors. They will most of the time watch it, even if it's sort of unsolicited, if you have that relationship with casting.
Right.
So not only there's the 150 regular ones, which is more than the 40 back in the day, they can cover more ground faster. But of course, the personal touch of like, hey, I know you're really good, talented, you're nice and affable to be around. That when these cast directors are basically headhunters say, I want to put their name forward to, producers, you sort of know they're not an asshole or something's defective with them. But now if it's over self-tape and it can be anywhere in the world,
right,
it sort of changes the dynamic. But yeah, it's a lot of self-tapes.
Absolutely. I can only imagine. Do you have any horrible self-tape stories that you can mention?
I wish. I've actually been quite impressed on how actually really good most of the self-tapes are.
Good.
I mean, sometimes somebody, will take a choice and it doesn't totally get there, or the hardest thing for self-tapes, I think, is to keep someone's attention. And I think, there's just a natural, the camera loves somebody, you want to pay attention to them. Some of it I think can be taught. But no, most of the performances are pretty good. The problem I see, everybody's good, right? You wouldn't probably have reps. You probably wouldn't get in front of these casting directors if you weren't good, right? But you got to be great or exceptional to book things. And you got to be great and exceptional regularly over time, consistently to, I think, be truly a working actor and to be an actor where you can really make choices. But also then there's so much luck and serendipity to it. That's the part that is sort of exciting and also mind-blowing. And there's hundreds of stories of, Rob Lowe was doing this show. I read his second book, which I thought was really interesting. He was doing a show called The Lion's Den that he was a producer on. It was sort of a little bit of the character he did from West Wing and doing this. Amy Adams was a recur guest star, and she was going to get bumped up to series regular. The show got canceled, and by doing that, she got to do this little indie movie called Junebug. She got Oscar nomination for it, and then she became the Amy Adams we know instead of the recur guest acting Amy Adams we know. Or like let's see, Bradley Cooper was in one of my favorite shows on Fox that only lasted 13 episodes called Kitchen Confidential, which was based on Anthony Bourdain's book. And he was the lead of it. It had John Cho. It had this great cast about a messed up chef in this crazy environment. And it was really interesting, smart, and very non-sitcom-y, even though it had, it had those elements. And if that show went on for 5 years, is Bradley Cooper the Bradley Cooper we know?
Right.
Maybe. But he also... or maybe he just became Zach Braff. I don't know. Like, that's where the serendipity and the luck of timing and things getting canceled and things getting renewed, it's just...
Did you see him in that chef movie?
Burnt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Thought it was good.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I like about... Well, I think chefing is a great example of I'm an artist and creating something. So I think actors really like to do it, just like Jon Favreau did the movie Chef, which was just such a... sort of on the nose of, I did Iron Man 2, no one liked it. Now I'm going to go make my food truck show about a guy in a food truck, which is just the movie Chef. And by doing that, now he runs probably the biggest franchise in the world, which is The Mandalorian. But it's just funny. It's like in that he has a meltdown of like, I've always given, why do I have to keep making the same dishes over and over? And his boss in it, which is his like, because people want it. That's what people like. And it's like, there's that whole actor, creator, artist thing that fits really well into the chef sort of algorithm.
Yeah. Back to the self-tape aspect of things, I'm always amazed at the amount of instructions that sometimes casting has to say. And I shouldn't say the amount, I should say the specifics and, like landscape instead of portrait. And I'm like, whoa, what actor has such a lack of information on the cross disciplines of filming and TV filming and using a camera that they're shooting stuff in portrait that, hey man, you need to be lit well, like you just have a light or something and don't make sure the camera's pointing at you. Make sure I know this happened a while ago. You have some performers who are profile doing an audition and I'm like, what, they can't see your face. What, you think this is acceptable? I don't understand that, where that bridge is missing in their heads.
Yeah. I have many, as you were saying that, I was just being flooded with how many of those I've seen over the years. It's like we've had so many internal conversations before COVID when self-tapes was even growing more in popularity, because, somebody be on set shooting a show somewhere and the casting director's in New York or LA. So self-tapes were really growing into favor. I think a lot of times it's actors of a certain age who have been working a lot that are like, they used to go into a audition room. They didn't have to pay attention to the scenery. They just did the scene. I mean, back in the day, it was very acceptable to have the pages in your hand and not really be off book, And that was how, if you go to YouTube, you can watch a lot of them where people are booking based off of their reading and sort of, I mean, that never gets by now.
No.
Yeah. I mean, I have actors that are of a certain age that have been working for 30, 40 years. Portrait. It's and you're like, but yeah, so it's that. I had some people that got real creative with it. I mean, I remember once you even back in the day went out into the woods and did a self-tape.
Oh my God, Steve.
But
the caveman one?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was really good and captivating and interesting. And I think it's great to take swings like that. But also you want to go side by side with the actual one too.
Yeah.
So everybody's been there because you want to be creative, you want to do something different. I had another guy that he put it on a table and leaned over it like he was, really in the moment of avant-garde cinema. And it's you want to hope that they watch that and actually can see the performance in it, but they're not.
That made me cringe so hard in my heart right now when you mentioned that. Just because if I could talk to my younger acting self, I'd be like, hey, I get you're excited about this and you want to show that, you have gusto and that you really want this, but shoot it in your home.
Or do both. I mean, I think there has to be a level of creativity that's going to be the next wave of these self-tapes of something, because I've seen people do it where they're doing it with each other. They're taking different risks just to stand out, because I can only imagine, I mean, I don't have to imagine, I do it every day, watching so many self-tapes, but especially the same scene over and over. You got to grab them quick. You got to say you got to watch the whole thing, because I can only imagine the majority of these casting directors are turning it off after 10, 15 seconds.
Yeah, that's something I talk to my brother about. I say, okay, now we found the foundation. Make it interesting? What's the William version of this that nobody else can do?
Yep.
And that first 10, 15 seconds you're talking about, like moment before, how do you enter a scene? This is the way 99% of actors are going to enter this scene. What's the cool way that makes sense that you're going to enter the scene that no one else? And here's the thing where I know I take liberties sometimes with what the script says, but I feel like those liberties have to make sense. And those are the ones I do where I'm like, okay, this lives in this world. If they don't like it, that's fine. I won't do it. But I want to take the chance, especially with series regular rules, because I think that's so important, because I don't want to be a robot and you just tell me what to do on the page.
Right.
This is going to live organically, and this is going to be we're going to make this character grow together. It's not just because of what you write or just because of what I want. This has to be, I feel like, a marriage, with the exception of some performances, like being word perfect, like, oh my gosh, those writers who say word
Aaron
perfect.
Sorkin.
Yeah.
Those guys, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
you hear stories about them. Like, there's a pause there for a reason. There's
Yeah.
a,
And I
there,
respect that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, because the writing's amazing. Yeah. Do what they want. Do
Yeah.
what they say, because there's a very specific storyline to it.
Well, not even storyline, that there's almost like a pitch to it. There's almost like Mamet and these guys that have true voice. Like, there is a melody almost to it. And
Yeah.
and not everybody can also deliver that melody. So, yeah, I mean, I'm all about people taking chances and taking liberties and trying to be memorable and making bold choices. I think that's the important thing. I think so many people know the beats, do the beats, and then we just sort of move on. But it's like, you're right. What's the thing you're going to bring? But you got to know the basics first. Like, you can only play with the music once you know the actual sheet music, right?
Yes.
I'm not a musician, so I hope that one made sense.
No, that made sense.
Okay.
I tell my brother, like, hey, are you listening to me? Because I just said this line differently from the last time, and you're responding the same exact way. Because that's something so difficult for actors to do, to really listen. And he gave me a good question, William did. He goes, I'm working with you in this scene, and obviously you're an actor and you're acting very well with me, and I'm able to do this. What happens when I get a casting director who's not acting?
Right.
And I'm like, you have to manufacture it. You have to be so specific that you even know what the other person's doing, so that you're able to imagine that in the moment and do it.
Yeah, I only think that was probably the hardest bit when you went into rooms, because I've had friends that are readers or casting associates, and some of them had training. Some of them were actually actors in a previous life or had transitioned from acting to this, so they could give you something. But I've seen a lot of casting directors just read it like it's like it's, I don't know, the back of a cereal box. And I don't know how you manufacture that. I mean, you got to be great to do it. And I think almost that was part of the way casting directors did it on purpose, to sort of challenge the actor. And now you're right, everybody's got good readers, but also the key, as I've noticed with certain readers and self-tapes, is that you want them to not outshine the scene or the person who's taping. There is a skill set to that. I've noticed some people have some really good people out there that are performers on the other side that are not outshining the performer.
Absolutely.
Another skill set.
Peyton, how are we on time? Do I need to say goodbye to people? 8 minutes left. Okay, great. We're going to keep going after the 8 minutes. It's just for the hour slot on Adobe. You were going to say something? Sorry.
I don't remember.
Don't remember.
I don't know what, but it was just basically like, the one thing is just a piece of advice is for actors, 2 different takes are not changing a word or a tone in one sequence. Like, that's the thing that I think people forget. It's like, I love it when somebody does one performance and then they do a whole different take. Like, and the whole take is not changing a word or a beat. It's the whole character is different. And I think that's a lot of actors don't get that.
Oh, okay.
You know, if you're going to do 2 takes, I don't want to be able to have to put them up side to side and not be able to tell the difference. Like, I want to send 2 and I think especially with self-tapes, why not send 2 takes? You know, have a 1A and a 1B, and the B is take bigger swings or change the character up. To me, it shouldn't just be like a polish of what the first one was, or they should feel different.
I think, and I don't know if this is maybe parallels to what you're saying or maybe connects, though I did one recently, and you might have seen it. I didn't know how character-y they wanted. I don't know if you don't remember, that's fine, but
mean, you got to be specific, maybe on the show or the.
Oh,
character.
yeah, the one with the guy who did My Name Is Earl.
Yeah, Garcia.
Yeah, Garcia, Sprung. I
Yeah.
think it's Sprung.
Yeah.
I didn't know. It says charactery. How much exaggerated we're going with the character
Right.
versus how grounded. And so, do you feel like it's different enough when they're going really charactery, and then there's a little, and then more grounded? Is that different enough to you?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
I think
but
yeah, yeah, that's the right idea. Like, if you're gonna go for it, go nuts.
Okay.
We don't have to send it. That's a great part.
Yeah.
You're not in the room asking, "Can I do another one? I got a different take." Because I think also when somebody goes into a room and says, "Hey, I have a different take," and they do basically the same thing over again, casting directors would be like, "Well, if the director said, 'Hey, do something really different,' do you even have that gear? Do you even have that skill set?" So that's why I think it's important. Like, and again, if you go wild, we don't have to send it. You know, if it's like way off. But I think especially if you're asking for a character quirky type, Kramer on Seinfeld is a quirky character type, right? And so is George Costanza, but they're pretty different. You know, so like, can you modulate that? Can you do one in between? Like, that's got to be the great part about being an actor is you're truly creating a moment, an instance, a character, like. But there's got to be differences too, especially if you're going to do a second take. That's what I get at.
Dude, what you just said is so valuable. It's so freaking valuable. And the whole 2 takes thing, I'm like, oh, yes. Like, why do we forget that? Because I'm so used to getting, I love redirection in the room because I know I can take it immediately in that moment. And that's also showcasing a skill thing. Like, hey, you can hire me and do that. Because in testing, that's happened before where the director of the pilot will be like, hey, can you make him just really mean, even though the character is not mean at all? And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Because I know what he's trying to see. Are you directable? Can we, like, down the line do different things with him? Is he able to take direction?
Right.
Which is such... I'm curious to know then, how are these producers and networks casting these actors with great faith that I hope he's directable? Because I've seen some of those breakdowns, like, no Zoom session with producers. We're casting off tape. And it's like, how?
Yeah, I think there's more, probably quietly, there's more recasting. And I think, there's always stories of like, hey, well, we want to do a local hire. And I think sometimes it's like, maybe they want to save a little bit of money of flying somebody and setting somebody up. But also maybe they hired the wrong person and they realized it afterwards. I don't know. I just, it's, it goes back to the original thing. You asked what I'm looking for. I'm looking for like cool people that are normal, that can speak, that are driven, that are successful, but not all consumed in an unhealthy way.
Yeah.
And I think that's also speaks to when you're on set, can you take direction? Can you if you're in a writer's room, can you know when it's your time to talk or when it's jump an idea, maybe write down some stuff like before you just like, this is my world and you're all living in it. It's like, well, no, they're spending a ton of money and you're just a piece of it.
Absolutely. Now, you've just mentioned some big no-nos. One of them was the fact that, hey, I don't think I'm right for this, which, I've emailed Joe before that because the role has said late 30s. And I'm like, hey, I mean, I don't mind going in for it, but I don't think I could portray that, But like you said, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. They saw something in you that you liked. And for a brief moment, I forgot. These casting directors are the gatekeepers. And I love just any opportunity to be like, okay, cool. You know what? I like this casting director, or I haven't gone in front of this casting director. I might not be right for the role, but hey, I'm going to do a great job. So the next time I am right for something, they know, oh, at least I know he can do great work for it. Fly just landed on me.
I think, look, I'm all fine if actors want to pass on material. Like if maybe they're not up to it emotionally, spiritually, they're having a bad week, they're self-doubt. All that shit's fine. Excuse my language. But I want them to call me and tell me why, or on the email if like I'm passing why. To me, it's the biggest cop-out of I don't think I'm right for this. I literally, somebody the other day said that, and I said, why are you already self-defeating? Why are you going into this saying I'm wrong? Like, if you need that to take the pressure off to do something good, great. But you're saying, I don't want to do this tape because I don't feel I'm right for it. Well, you're probably not right for all the things you're going out for. You have to convince someone that you're actually right. Like, that's the job. And so, it's a problem because that means I'm not ready to be a professional actor. I'm not emotionally stable enough. I am trying to play the person choosing the role. Again, I said, are you the director? Are you the producer? Are you even the casting director? And usually say no, and then I'm not those things. And then I'm like, well, then why do you think you're wrong for it? Somebody thought you were right for it, me included. I wouldn't bother sending it to you if it was time. But also, maybe I've been in for that office before. I have read in all these biographies I read, there's almost always a story where it's like, I went out for that thing 5 years ago, met that casting director. They remembered something I did. And when the role came around that they really thought I was right for, I got it.
Yeah.
They're one of the casting director's biggest jobs that no one thinks of. Their job is to basically remember you. Their job, not just a gatekeeper, headhunter, but they're paid for their memories. I worked with this person. I knew this person from this. I remember they went in for this thing. They have to have a Rolodex of thousands of actors in their head to be able to make lists for the top 3 people that they send to producers of saying, these are people that can get financed. These are great actors that could carry a series. Here are people we know that are up and coming. That is what they do all day. They're not just sending out auditions. They're not just sending out tapes. They are trying to find the next generation. And you need, or any actor needs to show that you belong in that next generation.
Absolutely. All right. Listen, if you're listening on Adobe Radio right now, we're going to go away. However, the conversation continues on. You can watch the full episode tomorrow on YouTube or listen to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Make sure you download the Adobe Radio app to check that out, or you go directly to YouTube. Thanks again for listening, and the show goes on. Yeah, man. So obviously saying I'm not right for this without a really, really good reason, that kind of is a big no-no on the client's side.
Well, it's just sad. It's self-defeating. And also it's like, why would I want to continue to work for somebody and pitch somebody if they're just going to think they're not right for stuff?
Right. Do you get annoyed from this if they call like, hey, I think I'm right for this. Can you submit me for it?
No, actually, if they know the breakdown and they know the character, not at all. I'm all open for all ideas, other ideas, new eyes. Like, we're in this together. The one that sort of is a little bit is like, hey, I read Deadline today. I heard they picked this up. Can you get me in for it? Like, we got more incoming calls from clients about Powerpuff Girls and people wanting to audition for it than A, there were roles. B, they didn't even know what the roles were. And C, it's like, because you liked the cartoon? Great, okay, wonderful. It's not going to make me pitch you harder or less because you liked the original. But it's also like they didn't have the script. They didn't know the roles.
Gotcha.
They just were like, hey, I read that it got picked pilot. This was my favorite show ever. And I guess that's okay and interesting, but like, there's a way you frame it that makes a little bit more sense. And most people are like, can you get me in for this? And it's like, for what?
I think I did that with you guys for Cowboy Bebop for the main role. And I knew, though, going in, I was like, listen, it's a little bit of a long shot. But I've been obsessed with this Cowboy Bebop series for a while. The main character. Because I know, yeah, I have a few series regulars on my belt, and that's awesome. But I'm not a household name. I'm not like, millions of followers on Instagram or something like that. So I know it was a long shot, but you guys were receptive to it. And I did get an audition for one of the bad guys in it.
Yeah.
Speaking of that show, he tore his ACL or something. He had a knee injury, so they had to pause it, and then coronavirus hit.
Yeah.
So
I think it's finally supposed to. I think they've been shooting again.
Oh, they have. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know when or what. I mean, because I think it's shooting in Australia or someplace that's like a lot of locals, and they're not flying as many people. Look, I'm all for it. I love it when people are like, I love this thing. Like, It helps me identify things you're passionate about. That's great. I think it's the specificity of like, I want to get in for this. And you're like, which role? And they're like, I don't know.
Okay, well, I don't know either
Yeah.
right now.
But I love knowing more about the clients, what they're passionate about, what they love to do. Great. That only excites me more. And just somebody who's like helps pitch people. I love getting people on shows that I love or shows I watch. Like, I have always watched The Walking Dead. It has gone through its ups and its downs. It's sort of been a constant every Sunday. I have harassed everybody from the EPs to the directors to the casting directors. They all know who I am. They all know I love the show, and I think that passion plays too. We get appointments for it because I'm generally excited about the show too. I mean, most of these casting directors, they get no credit, no interest from anybody. They're just like, they're the sort of perceived as the middleman, and a lot of these shows go unwatched. I just wonder how many people are like, wow, what a great movie that was. The cast was amazing. I send those sort of notes to casting directors sometimes when I'm pitching people. I'm like, I truly love this show. And I want to be an authentic person that's not BSing people all the time. I want them to know I'm passionate about that, or like I love that it shoots in New Mexico where I'm from. This is great because, you know, at the end of the day, they're people doing a job, and they've got producers yelling at them. They got people like myself pitching them clients all day. They got agents that are yelling at them, you got to see my client. So like it's a pretty unsung job.
Yeah. When do you feel is the time to cut ties with a client? Is there any specific signs that you're like, all right, this is gone, it's run its course?
Oh, yeah, I mean that's a tough question because we wrestle with that all the time. I would say, I would frame it the other way. I would say we will always fight and push for people that are good people, work hard, get tapes in on time, are activated, engaged, those things. Like, I love working for those people all day. They could, you know, we could get them 88 auditions in a year with one booking. And if they are kind, genuine, smart, interesting, hungry, aggressive, working on stuff on their own, I'll fight for them to the end of time. It's you know, and yeah, bookings help to see that you're building momentum and growing and stuff. But like, it's a long haul. There's a little bit of luck to it for sure. There's a lot of skill. But there's also a group of people that, for example, one guy I've been wrestling with, I've been working with for a long time, and there's something about him I really like. He is a Latinx actor, and he, over the last 4 years we've been working with him, he gets auditions for fluent Spanish speaker, native Spanish speaker, some of those things. And he's every time for 4 years, I don't speak Spanish, I'm not going to do this role, or I'm not right for it, I'm not going to book it. So not only is he already self-defeating, but also in 4 years, probably could have learned Spanish. Now, maybe not fluent, maybe not perfect, but like 4 years ago, when you saw that the market was turning, that they want people to be bilingual, I don't know, maybe take Spanish.
I'm not trying to be offensive to the Spanish language, but it's one of the easier languages to learn, especially if you are an English speaker. It's, you know, it takes a little bit of work, but yeah, I agree with you. Especially anything to give you an edge in this business is so freaking helpful. I mean, yeah. I love that I'm ethnically ambiguous, and then I can still go out for the Arabic roles as well.
Yeah.
So I don't see that as a negative. Yeah, that's really interesting.
And to me, it's just like it's not specifically the language. It's not specifically his role. And unfortunately, that is what people are looking for in casting these roles. Now, it's not always. So like 1 out of 5, they want someone to be able to speak Spanish. Now, are they really going to speak Spanish on the show? Is it going to be, here's some lines to memorize? Probably. But like, A, it's self-defeating. B, it's like, what else are you doing with your time? You know, right. It's like, even if he was like, hey man, I got in a Spanish class and I'm working, then I know that there's at least some effort on that side. Or I don't want to be in a class. I've been in a class. It's not really getting me anywhere. It's like, well, maybe find another class. Or it's just, there's always going to be a lot of excuses, and that's fine. But we sent a tape to someone the other day. They had 4 days to do it. We followed up at the deadline, and the actor was like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do it right now. I'm at the beach. And I was like, you know, I'm not at the beach. I'm in the office all day. I'm pitching, working for you. You had 4 days and you didn't get done because now you're at the beach? Like, why don't you get it done before you go to the beach? I don't know. It's a crazy idea. So, like, those are the things that you're sort of thinking, why do I work with these people?
I'm sorry. They had an audition 4 days. It was due in 4 days. And on the third day, you guys called them and said, hey, where's the audition or whatever? And then they said, I'm at the beach.
It was actually the 4th day because it was the day it was due. I think it was due at like 4 p.m.
That drives me up a wall. And let me explain to you why, Mr. Smith.
Please.
I just realized I called you Mr. Smith from like I felt like I was in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Mr. Smith.
I always liked that character.
Yeah. First of all, auditions are rare. Second of all, don't you want to be an actor? If you don't, that's fine. Nobody asked you to. Nobody's begging you to be an actor. Third, your reps worked really hard to pitch you for that. Like, do you not respect that aspect of it? Like that, the lack of awareness of you and your team and how it looks as a unit, that drives me crazy.
Even, let's just say, all we did was submit and we got the audition. Let's just say we didn't even do any work.
Okay.
My income is based on that person getting a job, any person getting a job. And if you can't be bothered to do it before you went to the beach, like, even if it was one day, like, it's one of those things where maybe lie to me. Maybe use those acting skills to say somebody got hit by a car. Because you saying I went to the beach is kind of like, why am I going to continue to work for this person? Because you ask what makes us want to drop people.
He said he was at the beach. That drives me so, like, dude.
And don't assume it was a man. But that's the thing, is we have clients like yourself that get these massive auditions and pretty regularly, pretty consistently, who will forego going to spring break or on trip. There was a young woman we worked with years and years ago. Volume of auditions was not her problem. She got so many auditions. And there was one time she went out of town for a month, and this is pre-COVID, to Mexico with a group of friends. And of course she didn't tell us. She didn't book out, which, like, I don't think anybody should ever book out now that we have iPhones. But, like, she started doing them, like, from the bed in a bathing suit, not in character, like, just to get them done. I'm just like, and again, we don't work with this person because it was like years and years ago, but it was like 400 auditions in like 3 years and almost no bookings. So if you're throwing in the towel, great. If you need to take time off, great. But, like, don't make me run you down for an audition that you got to be at the beach or on vacation, and then just to barf out an audition. I don't know. It's just the truth is, it makes it for the most part, it makes it very easy to part ways with people because the work isn't there, the effort.
That's such, like, common professionalism 101, in my opinion. You know, like, whenever I contact you guys, like you or Joe, you guys, you know, especially you, like, I consider you a friend, you know?
Yeah.
But I know I'm never just, hey, what you thinking about today? You know, I know you're busy. You have, like, other clients, a lot of other clients. You have your family and stuff. So, you know, making sure when you're reaching out for a purpose, being direct and that sort of thing. And then, you know, book out dates. Like, even when I went back to Oklahoma, I'm like, hey, I'll still be able to self-tape.
Yeah.
But I'm just in Oklahoma, just so you know.
Yeah.
I'll be back on this day.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Even when we went to Japan, Isaiah got an audition while he was in Japan. And so luckily that day we were in a hotel room, so we filmed his audition there. We printed it off at the receptionist, and we read lines with him. I held a light. Jonte worked the camera, read line. I think I read lines, or I forgot who, but then that's how it was. That's how we got him the tape.
Yeah.
And his reps were like, great, thanks. That's not hard. If you really want it, you'll find a way, man.
That's true. And that's why I think there's so many aspiring actors and not so many working actors. Now, I think there's obviously other cases and other things involved, but, like, just be honest. Like, I couldn't get it done, somebody was sick or whatever. Like, that's fine. If there's shit happens all the time, you know? But I can't imagine an actor going, like, here's one from back in the day I always have wanted to say and never have. It's when somebody's like, I can't afford classes or I can't afford headshots. I'm like, I'm sure there's some other issues behind it, some behind the scenes issues that are personal or systemic or whatever it is. But, like, what if I was like, I can't afford breakdowns this week? Sorry, I can't submit you. My computer's broken. No, you figure it out. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, you figure it out. Like, that's part of the job, is like, go get 10 roommates, go deliver food. Like, there's always a way to make enough money to get done, one way or another. Or at least, look, we've loaned people money. We've said, like, here's some money, here's some headshots, here's somebody who owes us a favor. Here's, like, we had a client we worked with who we stopped working with, going back to that question, couldn't afford classes or coaching. So I paid a casting director for 10 classes in advance. I said, there are going to be people that are going through a rough time that need some help or need a spark. So I said, I bought 10 classes. I told this person, I said, hey, here's 3 classes. Use them before your next 3 auditions. The person went once, and on an audition in which we said, hey, we got you an audition, you should coach with this. Remember, it's free, just set it up. The next one, we said, hey, you should use that coach again. He said, no, I just did it on my own. Okay. The next one, well, you should use this coach. No, I don't want to. A person didn't book anything, never worked. Booked one thing, never paid us. And then it's also like, the offer was there, and they just, it really felt like they were just too lazy to plan in advance to get it taped with a professional. And so it's those sorts of things, which again, if you're like, hey man, I'm going through a tough time or whatever, like I'd fight, but like, and keep pushing and keep talking and keep communicating. What are you supposed to do with somebody like that?
I got to be honest with you. And I've apologized to you before, and it's not, I know you said it's not my fault, but I still feel bad about it. I've recommended some people to you who at the time seemed like, I really want this. And I tell them, hey, you know how hard I work? That's how they're going to expect you to work. And be open to taking their advice. And then it might start off in the beginning like that, and then it just drops, or they just don't do it from the start. And I can't express to you how embarrassing that is to refer someone and they don't step up to the plate.
No, you can't take it personally, and you can't think of it that way. It's just it's 100 different reasons, 100 different things. And again, sometimes they're actors and they act like they really care. But you know, the rubber has to hit the rubber has to hit the road somewhere. There has to be drive. There has to be desire. And the thing is, I just don't totally get is that these are real opportunities that lead to money. So if you need the money, now I wouldn't count on it as like, oh my God, I need to pay rent. I have to book this thing. You're probably not going to book that thing, especially under those circumstances. But these are things that lead to $8,000-$9,000 for a guest star on broadcast. That's real money. Or you know, a recur on this cable thing for $5,000 a pop here and there. Like, it leads to money. So like, if money motivates you, great. If it's being seen and getting out there or building a career, great. But like, I can't always figure out and find that thing that motivates you. And I've tried it with different people. I try to be the best friend that's always encouraging. Every now and again, I don't like being this is the coach that throws the chair and that throws a temper tantrum and say, like, you got to get this done, because some people respond to a little ass kicking here and there. But, you know, I'm not verbally abusive or anything, but I just sort of give stakes to the moment. I found that never works, but maybe it does for a minute. That person sort of gets better tapes here for like a week or two. But, you know, it's just... It's hard. Like, it is a hard endeavor, and somebody to know that often, get told you don't have it or feel that. And I don't think anybody ever actually tells people that, but to feel that and go auditioning for a year and like, I can only imagine what that feels like. I do not know. And so people are going to find ways to subvert that pain and that discomfort. But then maybe this job isn't for you.
Yeah, and also you might have had a good time doing theater in your small hometown, and you might have gone to college for it, and you might have not taken it that seriously in college, but you had a good time doing it, and you're thinking, hey, it's going to be a good time out here doing it. And it's not, because you're not the same person you were in college or high school, and it takes a lot of money to live in a big city, and you're going to be encountering a lot of personal problems at the same time, a lot of bad people who might affect your life in a negative way. And this is not an easy profession, like you're saying. And if this is really what you want to do, if you're really hungry, you'll find a way to make it work.
Right.
The whole I don't have money thing, oh, cool. How many jobs do you have? Oh, you have 2 jobs? Get a third just for acting then.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is. Run a paper route. You see people do that. There's guys who... when I say guys, I mean people in general. Man, they wake up at 4, they do their job, they have their early job that they do, and then they go to their regular job, and then they pursue their passion. And yeah, they're tired, but they really want to do what they want to do. I don't know, man. I just think
there are a lot of barriers of entry. Money does make it easier, absolutely. There was a time when I was talking to an actor and said, I don't have any money. And I said, you know, I've worked with a couple people that open gyms at 4 a.m. and they go work a full shift from 4 a.m. to whatever, 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. They actually exercise during that time too, so they're getting the double benefit out of it. And then the whole day they're available. Because also I don't necessarily think, yes, waiting tables is a way to get there. Bartending is a way to get there. The bartending in the nighttime lifestyle traditionally doesn't go well with auditioning and booking and working, because I feel like that's a draining thing. It not only it physically affects you, it mentally affects you. You know, there's a lot of alcohol and fun and things like that will deprioritize. But like, again, it's about prioritization. I think if you can work that job, not drink, go to bed right away, get as much rest as you can. But I feel like, and again, I come from a place of privilege, but I think you can figure out a way to sustain yourself to make enough money to really make a go at this career. And again, it's not for everybody, and there is luck involved. But and no one should do this because they feel like they have to. And I think that in a lot of the interviews with actors, especially been doing it 20, 30 years, they're always told, if you can think of anything else to do in your life, do that instead of this. And I think it's the same for managers and agents and all that stuff. Like anybody in this business, the business is challenging. Is it impossible? No. Is everybody a monster? Absolutely not. I have lots of great friends that have been doing this, and especially I think as the business has evolved into more television-based, I want to work with these people over and over for years, has really helped the business along from when it used to just be features. You do a movie out of bullying and pressure and whatever. A lot of those guys are gone now, thank goodness. But once that movie got done, you could move on and start over with everybody else. Now it's like you want to be working with the same people over and over, not just as clients and whatever. But it takes hard work, like working in an agency 12, 14 hours a day, getting yelled at, coffee, tired for years and years, or a production company reading scripts all day and all night. Like there's no version of this business that is a cakewalk.
No, but nobody's asking you to be in it. That's also another thing. And if you love acting and stuff, but this business is too much for you, you can go do it in another city. You can go do, and when I say community theater, it doesn't mean it's like really, really bad. You can find good community theater in a lot of different cities.
Yeah.
You can find professional theater, and then you might be a bigger fish in a smaller pond there, and you might work a little bit more, and that's fine. And then you can still pursue it. But I know for me, I specifically wanted to be a TV actor. That's what I wanted to do. Yeah, I want to do films too, but like specifically TV acting is what I want. I like it. I like the pace of it. I like the consistency of it. And yeah, but I know when things get hard, this industry doesn't owe anything to me. This universe doesn't owe anything to me. So that makes me want to work 5 times as hard.
Right.
And tactically, but work smart, work cunningly. That's why I like working with you and Joe. You guys have such great tactics, especially when we're going to, like, I'm pursuing a role, or if I have a question about something, I'm like, oh, that's so smart. I didn't think about that. Okay, cool. Thank you. I'm going to apply that in the audition and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
But also, actors got to act, right? Like, I'm not an actor. I'm not a performer. I'm going to give you notes on something that maybe didn't play, I didn't get. It felt like an inauthentic moment. But I'm not going to tell you what character to act. I'm not going to tell you. That's your job. You're the professional there. Just like I'd hope most actors aren't going to come in and tell me who to pitch on what, right?
No, you're absolutely right.
But that's the thing. That's what you do, and I trust that. And that's why I want to work with professional actors that work hard, that push themselves, that are training on weekends, that are going the extra mile, because you're not going to get anywhere unless you're going the extra mile. And so that's why I love working with people that are hungry, pushing themselves, because I am not going to tell you, oh, maybe you should do the character like this. But no, that's you. You're the pro in that space.
Well, I'll give you an example of you've never given me any kind of note like that, and it's such subtle things that only somebody from the outside can see. You go, it had been a month since I've gotten an appointment, and it was right after I came back from Oklahoma, and I got COVID, and it was my first audition after kind of feeling better from COVID. You're like, hey, the audition was great and stuff, but I just noticed that it was kind of lower energy than usual with you. And I was like, oh, man, I didn't even see that in the audition. But now that you mention it, I'm like, no, you're right. And I think it's important for the actor to be open to that. Because I'll give you an example. If I'm signing on with a new manager that I've never signed on before, let's say somebody like you, I'm going to take your advice just purely out of the respect that, okay, I'm working with somebody new. Maybe there's something I'm not even expecting out of this. Great, I'm going to take it. I don't understand when people are so, nope, I'm not going to listen to what anybody else says. I'm doing my thing, even with new reps. I'm like, yeah, but it's not working with what you're doing. I don't know, man. It's very frustrating hearing actors talk about that with their new reps or with reps they've had for a while, where I'm like, okay, why don't you just leave those reps, get new ones? I don't know why you're with them. Well, they get me auditions. Well, you're not booking and you're not taking their advice. So
that to me is the thing. It's like, look, I want to be collaborative. I don't have all the answers. I've done a lot of research. I've watched a lot of stuff. I've read a lot of books. I read a lot of scripts. I read the trades. I talk to a lot of executives. Like, I'm getting information firsthand from people that are in and on the front lines working in production companies. So I'm gathering all that information to share that with you, a performer, an actor, anybody, to say, this is what I understand it to be. This is whatever that thing is. And look, I'm not going to ever tell anybody what to do. I want to be collaborative. If you're like, hey, I have this idea of doing this, and I say, great, go for it. But also, if you could do another take, because this is sort of like the tone of the show, and things like that, great. But I don't want to, but it is frustrating when you you talk to somebody, this conversation with 2 other managers I work with, I was not in this conversation, but they were like, in the same conversation, we've told this guy 4 different times in different ways of like what we expect or what he should be doing to help himself. And he always comes back with another thing of like why that's sort of not the case. So he's not really listening. And I said, well, is this the first time you've had this version of a conversation with him? They're like, no, actually we haven't. We've been working with him for 3 months and we have this conversation about every other week. And I'm sort of like, just to even the managers I work with, your time is more valuable than this. If this kid can't hear what you're saying and that you are the experts in this specific lane and that you have years of experience and understanding and training and all this stuff in how the business works, and he is pushing back on that, you cannot spend that time, because that's what I call, putting good money after bad. If he can't hear the people in his circle that he is hired to trust, what happens when you get on set? You push back to the director, to the producer. Why do they need to work with you? Like, it's like that. You can sort of tell from just that exchange that when he gets perspective from someone else down the road, in which a production is paying money for everybody to be there and waiting, and he's going to be pushing back, just wasting time. Like, we got to think of it that way too, that they're going to not only get the job, but keep the job.
No, you're absolutely right. And I'm not telling people to be a pushover either.
Yeah.
But I like to pick my battles.
Sure.
Because when I'm very careful about that, I know the other side is going to listen.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, Wesam usually doesn't push back on stuff. I wonder why he's pushing back now. There must be a good reason for it.
Absolutely. There's also a lot of managers out there that aren't. I know several managers. I know a lot of agents. There definitely, you hear stories about certain types of managers, certain people that, trusting them is going to be hard, because either what they're saying doesn't make sense, or their list isn't that interesting, or they've been doing it a long time. I don't know. And also, like, the nature of this business and any business like that, there's always some people that aren't really in it, that are just making it up, that aren't really having these you know what I mean? It's like there's these fringe managers, which they scare me. And I always hate hearing these terrible stories of people we just signed, of like, I went to a manager and they told me to change my name to make it sound more ethnic, or to do these bad headshots with the stethoscope, or there's just so much bad advice out there. So read books, read these articles, go online. Like, I don't know. It's just sort of like with anything, like, there's information out there. Now you got to curate it for yourself. So I'm just fascinated with like how much bad advice is there out there. So just when it goes to your point of like, I just started working with them. I want to sort of know what they're saying. I'm sort of like, well, that's why it should be a conversation. The trust isn't just gained in an instant, but also it's a collaborative process between reps, managers, casting, producers. So I don't know. It's tricky. But you do want to, you got to have, if you're signing with somebody, it's because you trust them and like them. It's not just because they're the only person you could get, I hope.
Right. Well, you also rep lit, and that's a whole different world, I know, but is it kind of the same things parallel in terms of like the professionalism, the work ethic? You're expecting them to
Absolutely.
be writing and taking the notes with a very open mind, especially like, I'll give you some of our experiences. We loved hearing me and Isaiah, you guys' notes about it, because you guys rep, first of all, you guys have working writers and working producers, working directors. So it would be so silly of us to not do that, first of all, just from a pure logical standpoint. And again, it gives us another perspective on the script. And what do you expect from the people, your writers and stuff?
It's really not that different. I mean, yes, it's a different discipline, but like, self-starters, highly motivated, interesting, cool to hang around with, have something smart and intelligent to say on a very different subjects. Like, all those things of anybody in the creative process, you want a point of view. Like, if you're going to go sculpt something great, if it's just a sculpture, it's got to say something. So you got to have something you want to say or convey underneath. For anybody in the arts or performing, but writers got to write. Like, that's the number one thing, is it, I hope they're writing short stories or something like that. We've had some clients who aren't working. There's clients I have that have been on TV shows and on broadcast shows working, basically 50, 48 weeks a year and haven't written something new, but have started something new and things like that. But they've been working consistently for 8 years on a high volume show with almost no time off. So that is totally understandable. There are people that aren't working on shows, or were on a show as a writer and then that show went away and they haven't worked in 2 years and they haven't written anything new. It's like, how am I supposed to get you a new job with the same thing that's been sent out 400, 500
Wow.
times? Or I don't even know where it's been sent out. So also having a new piece of material that speaks to the moment in time in which we're sending it out is helpful. So like, same thing with actors, but the difference is being a writer's group, like just like any actor, being around other actors, hearing and talking about the struggles of what it's like to be an actor, being a writer's group with other writers and getting to know what it feels like and the struggles to be a writer. Because I am not a writer. I mean, I love giving notes. I've definitely worked in development, but like, that's your lane. I'm not going to tell you how to write. I'm going to give you tweaks on the same thing I would on a performance of like, this doesn't land. I don't necessarily understand this character, this beat, or it's cloudy or whatever it is. They got to just be self-motivated and hungry. And sure, you're going to have self-doubt. Is the script any good? Is it not? That's where I want the trust. Is like, yes, your tape was really good. Yes, your script is really good. I wouldn't send it out if it wasn't. So, hard work. Cool. Fun to work with. Easy. Someone you can root for. I mean, just not just in a character playing on TV, but as a human being.
Absolutely. Man, Steve, this has been so beneficial. This is like has been a great crash course. I feel like we hit everything. Peyton, I'm trying to think of anything else that I could possibly think of, because you're new to LA as an actor too. Is there anything else?
Dude, I've heard so much
Yeah.
today. It's all so informative.
Yeah.
Freaking love everything you said.
Yeah, and I would say anybody new as an actor, find your home in acting class. Like, find a class, a group of people. Don't just settle for the first one you find, but find one where you can really be at home, comfortable, you like the people, and you can challenge yourself, push yourself, try things, because you can't do it on an audition. You're never going to do an audition because you're like in the game situation. Find a home where you're comfortable, people you like, that you're going to go through these battles and wars together, not just with your team, but also with people in your acting class and things like that. That's important.
I know I've mentioned it before. My favorite acting class in town, Keep It Real Acting with Stacey Edwards.
Cool.
It's Meisner based, but there's no BS. She calls you out. It's a scene study. She makes you work. And then when she sees you're not listening or you're not being present in the scene, she calls you right there. She's not going to make you feel better. She's there to make you a better actor, which I freaking love. So I highly recommend that. It's Keep It Real Acting with Stacey Edwards, and I recommend that for all your clients. I think she's teaching Zoom, how to do Zoom auditions, which I had one, which went well, but I'll be honest with you. I thought something was wrong technically, because you're just waiting in that waiting room and say the host has not let you in.
Oh.
So I was there for a while and I was like, when do I email Steve?
Yeah, no, these new Zoom things are weird. We've had some people that have had to do Zoom test deals where they're talking to somebody and when they need to set up a second camera. We're all doing our best.
Wow.
It doesn't seem the most efficient, and I assume people will go back to an audition room at some point. But I'm also like, there's such efficiencies to this. There's also cost saving. You don't have to pay for the space, all this stuff. So I feel like at the point you get to a producer-director session or whatever that is, not every casting director needs an office. Maybe I don't know what's to come, but I think, well, you get a little room on a lot somewhere, and you go in and meet the director and talk to them, and then you do that moment. But before all that, you don't really need an office. You don't really need, as a cast director, or you don't really need anything else, right? But there should be some actually in the room acting together, getting the feel for it, seeing it in real time, and getting to know the person. I feel like maybe the interview will come back more as getting to know the actor, like after they've done it, that there's a test session, that there's maybe a taped like interview for fun, just to get to know the person a little bit more. I don't know. We haven't seen it yet, but there will be an evolution of that step too, I think.
Yeah. I was going to say, let's say somebody doesn't have obviously a reel, or they don't have any TV credits. Would you recommend this? They find sides that they're like, oh, I could nail this audition. And they do a mock, like they film it like it's an audition, and they say, hey, this is something that if I were to audition for, this is what I would do with the tape, and send you the tape. Would that be appropriate?
Absolutely. We do that all the time. We actually have been pitching more over the last year with self-tapes than we have footage, because the self-tape is just the performer. It's not the music, the score swooning. If you notice also, a lot of times you could be performing against, when you did perform against Hope Davis, Hope is awesome. She's a pro. She can do anything. She just got cast in Succession. Like,
oh, nice.
She's amazing. Most of the time, the director is going to be on Hope, right? Just by the nature of the beast. So your best performance sometimes could be the cutaway, and on her face for the reaction. So we've been sending, and also sometimes when cast directors or even we're watching the reel, we look at the famous person. I mean, because they're extremely charismatic and they have a great presence on camera. So we just send the self-tape. Like, we got people that don't have any credits and they're really great, or who are stage performers that don't have a lot of TV credits. We send self-tapes because it's just them acting. And that's how we sign people. We say, if there's somebody who's new, we say, here's some self-tapes, bring them back to us. It's now on you to send it back to us. It doesn't always come back. That's a sign. Also, or they do one, or they don't do all four, whatever it is. There's all sorts of trap doors that they fall in on their own. But I love self-tapes because can they grab you in the first few seconds? Can they sustain it? Do they have that presence? I think it's a pretty great way to see how somebody acts.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And these things, there's no excuse. When I first came to LA, I was using those. Mm-hmm. And when the cameras started getting good, I was like, why am I setting it all up on that? These shoot in HD now. And I tried one with just my phone. I was like, oh, cool. I don't need to do that whole thing anymore.
Yeah.
It just streamlined everything. Plus, it's weird being in 2021 and not having like a Samsung whatever or an iPhone. It's just part of daily life, especially if you're an actor, getting your emails, everything, social media. So having a cheap tripod, a cheap light that you can get off Amazon,
There's
and
a
a
lot
cheap
of ring
backdrop,
lights.
boom, you're done.
Ring lights you can get for $20 that are really great.
There's literally no excuse. And again, if they do the money thing, hey, save up, get another job, or get another job.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there's a will, there's a way. I think if you want it bad enough, you'll figure it out. Now, I don't want anybody to do anything lewd, crude, illegal, but I'm just saying, people take shortcuts.
That's what I've been getting this whole time.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
No, just
No, of course not. I
figure it out. I don't know. I have lots of friends that moved out here with $1,000, and now they're SVPs or EVPs at studios, making $300,000-$400,000 a year, making real decisions of shows that are getting on in the air. And I met them, 20 years ago, when they were interns with $1,000 in their pocket, and at least they had the $1,000, which not everybody even has that. But this person worked hard, read all the scripts, watched all the stuff, made a lot of almost spent less time networking than maybe she should have, but did more time doing the job and crushing the job she had. And I think that's important. I think a lot of people in LA think about, I want that job. And they don't think about, you got to crush every little step on the way to get there. You're not going to just trip and, again, show up at Dodger Stadium and play center field that night.
Yeah. Steve, man, I hope we didn't miss anything. I feel like we've covered the whole gambit.
I mean, we could talk about this for a month straight with no break and still have something new to talk about, because this is a robust, interesting, diverse, smart business that I think also affects some real change, which I'm really excited about. The future of new voices, diverse voices, just female voices, everything. There is a place under the tent for everyone to tell their story, to portray that story, and I'm really excited about the future of storytelling, because there's a lot of shows that I watch, I'm like, I just had no idea about that experience, because I am not from that background, from that place. And I think we really do push the needle in the world for understanding, and I think there's a big responsibility to that, but it also should be fun. It should be exciting. It should be, we're not, as people say in our line of work all the time, we're not curing cancer. But I think it's important. I also think it's fun, and it can be lucrative. So
Absolutely. Well, I think it's, one last thing I'll add is, I think it's important for the actor to be professionally proactive.
Absolutely.
Let's say you're like, wow, I haven't had new headshots, which was me recently in a long time. So I was like, oh, better just do them at least something, so they have something that kind of looks my age a little bit more, or even maybe a professional worded email to you guys or your reps and be like, hey, is there anything you know that I can do on my end to make your job easier, that sort of thing, or hey, I just to give you guys an update, I've been doing this over the past few months. I think is helpful too.
In my 8 to 10 years working with actors, that's maybe happened under 10 times. It's just even the email of what else can I do to help? Or what more should I be doing? Or,
Wow.
Yeah, under 10 times.
Wow. That's so sad.
It's just, people get in their lane and they just, in their world, in their life. And everything. I mean, everything is a slog and everything is grinding. I mean, I think baseball is a really good analogy for a lot of life because you play 162 games. I can only imagine what that's like 10 months or 9 months out of the year just traveling and going to different cities. And I mean, they only play, how much are they actually playing baseball for? 20 minutes, but they're there for 3 hours, and I don't know. So I just use that as examples that is truly grinding out. But that's where it has the analytics of like every time you get up, you swing, you have a percentage, you have an on-base percentage. I wish there was more of that for actors because there you could have more actual proof of like this is how hard you're working and this is how it's paying off. Because it's not always financial. It's also not always it's fulfillment too on some levels. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that, but I wish I did.
Also, it might be a little different because, I mean, you can knock it out of the park with a performance, but you might not look like the right role. So you could be doing everything in your power to do it, but this is such a weird industry that looks at a certain point have a lot to do with it and matching
and timing. I remember you were up for 2 pilots at once upon a time, and we were testing for both of them and trying to let the window close on one to go to the next one. And like, we had an idea of which one we thought was going to get picked up. Neither got picked up, sadly, but at the time. But it's like we're also betting. When you get to that point where it's more about making choices, you're testing for 2. Which one do we want? Which one do we believe goes?
Yeah.
Like, turns left, turns right. We can take all the data we have, and we could still make the wrong decision on which one goes further, which one goes faster. So it's got to come down to you and what's the role you want to play more. But that's the stuff that also gets more fun is when you're making more choices and you're like, hey, let's put you up for this type of role while you're on hiatus or this thing, or how do we push towards that? That's where the job even gets more fun, not just for the performer, but for the rep too.
Absolutely, man. Dude, I appreciate you so much.
Of course.
For coming on, man.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. Stagecoach Entertainment is on Instagram. I think it's Stagecoach Ent.
I think.
Somebody runs it.
I'm not on Instagram. I try to stay off those things. I get older faster the more I realize with TikToks and the Instas and where's IG now? It's not even Insta.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And this Clubhouse thing you were mentioning, I don't know. I feel like it's. I'm not going to be an early adopter of that.
Okay.
I hope it helps some people, but it sort of feels like I'm not ready yet to commit to another app.
I feel you. It's hard for me to download any other new social media thing. Oh, you know what? These mic stands I think they're possessed by demons. Hey, real quick before we end, me and Peyton got into a big argument last week.
Oh, Lord.
No, we're gonna bring it up.
Of course you are. Of course you are. Of course you are.
So I saw the awesome new Mortal Kombat trailer.
Ooh, yeah.
What do you think about that?
I don't know. I mean, I remember in college seeing the first one, maybe it was the second one. I was very excited about it. I think there's always, even though even the one back in the day was really cheesy and fun, I'm just like, we haven't had a lot of good video game adaptations, and I'm always hopeful. I'm always like, this might be the one. Last of Us, I'm looking at you, which I haven't played, but I'm very excited to see it. I just, you got to go in with lowered expectations, but I am excited.
But yeah, you're not expecting like an Oscar-winning performance. But you're not expecting a goofy movie, right? Would you call it goofy?
I would say the first one was sort of goofy.
Okay, but this one doesn't look goofy to you, does it?
No, I'm into it. I'm here for it.
Oh, that's
I'll
so
watch
interesting.
It's going to be goofy fun.
Bro, it's he's a professional in the industry.
I mean,
He's
is
a
it like
professional.
Sonic? Is it going to be goofy fun like Sonic was? Or are we talking goofy fun like...
I'm thinking like goofy fun like a Fast and Furious.
Yeah, I could see that. Or sort of create its own MCU where you could do Sub-Zero as its own spin-off vehicle. Sure, I'm here for that.
This is a Mortal Kombat movie. The video games are so over the top and just extreme. Like
That's so too. It's too bad you're not mic'd. It's too bad you're not mic'd. Nobody can hear you right now.
man, that's why I'm shouting. Right now. I want the mics to pick me up.
I do think we overwent into the sort of like realistic. Like I did like the most recent sort of Batman franchise because he had bruises. You could tell he was like hurt in the morning, which is nice. But like, I don't mind the cartoonness of some of these old action movies. I think we could use more of that sort of escapist than this is like our dark world and fighting.
Well, Peyton doesn't know what he's talking about. To be completely frank.
I don't know what I'm talking about either. I mean, as far as this trailer goes, I'm just here for it. I think the bigger thing is that like I'm all for reboots. I'm all for reimaginings. I get that there's a risk aversion that we're not necessarily going to make every original story or maybe ever unoriginal story ever again. I think the best movies that are reboots say something different in this. Like, I think Saved by the Bell was a pretty masterful reboot because it had the vibe and the energy of the original, but it actually talks about systemic racism, public schools, the difference between public schools and underfunding and people like that, and also just having friends and mixing. And there's a trans character there that they bring it up in one sequence, and then it just doesn't matter anymore. It's amazing. It's about inclusion. It's about acceptance, and but it's fun and light and interesting. And I'm just so blown away when you can take something old and truly make it new. So I guess when I talk about, this movie, that I hope it's fun and new and different. And they're not just retreading the same storylines from the first two Mortal Kombats.
All right. Well, fun fact. The first movie I saw in theaters was Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
Yeah, I remember that.
Bro, got the soundtrack on CD.
Oh, yeah. That techno was ripping.
Bro, I was as a kid, blown away. That's the first movie I saw. And plus, I was already into martial arts. So I was like, oh, my gosh.
I saw it in college, and I remember who I went with. My buddy Adrian, Curtis, Turman, and Mike Watson. We all went to see Annihilation in college. It was amazing.
Yeah.
At New Braunfels in San Antonio. See? It was affecting.
Not goofy. Goofy is not the right word. Peyton, okay, you know what? We're going to end this. We're going to talk about it later. Steve, thanks again for coming on,
Thank
brother.
you, guys.
I appreciate you so much. Yeah, play us out, Peyton. Thank you, everybody at Adobe Radio, Nice Guy Digital. Thank you to Alexandra Gorski, Peyton, for all the hard work you do on the show. Thank you to all of our new subscribers on YouTube and for our new followers on Instagram. We appreciate you guys greatly. Make sure to always remember to listen, think, and then talk. Bye.